Hi, my name is Jeff from Mental Health Resource.
And I am Kata Lauren, a guest host here today. And today we have our guest, Joe Tabak.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi.
Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
Yeah, so Joe has 16 years in recovery. He works with Wounded Warrior Project and Rock to Recovery, and also is an avid musician and plays in a couple bands. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a drug addict and a convict and ex-convict, and I would consider I'm recovered, but still in active recovery. And I I do work for an organization called Rock to Recovery, and we specifically, it's actually with Air Force Wounded Warriors. We've had a defense contract with them for 9 years. And then Rock to Recovery is essentially, I'm a music therapist of sorts, and we work with mental health facilities, drug and alcohol treatment centers, along with the Wounded Warriors. And basically, we bring a bunch of instruments in, and we generally write and record and mix and upload a song with people that may or may have not ever played music before, and use it as active way of being able to release your emotions. And for me, most musicians are kind of spoiled. We have some sort of release that we can channel our anger or our sadness or our love or whatever it is into, and a lot of people don't get to have that experience. So
It stays trapped inside them.
yeah,
It's like an outlet.
it is. It's a huge outlet. And I never, in my recovery journey, I never got to go to rehab. Like I always detoxed in a jail cell or a prison cell, or but a lot of the treatment centers these days, my buddy and founder of Rock to Recovery, Wes, went through treatment, and he noticed that there was no music. But people are, painting and taking photos and making vision boards and painting rocks and doing sound bowls and doing things. But he's like, the only time I ever feel good is when I'm playing music. So he it's grown over the years on the way we do things. But it used to start where we would do it like over a month, but the turnover rate in treatment centers were kind of high. So we just took it down to where we actually do it within an hour and a half to 2 hours. We write and record a song from scratch.
So when did you start playing music?
Oh.
And I guess how, right? Because usually it's like somebody kind of like pushes the person
Influences
into
it.
it.
Yeah. Well, my mother was a musician. So
What'd she play?
she played piano and keys in like a classic rock style, like Kansas, Journey, Boston type band.
Cool.
And so from as young as I can remember, I would be in the studios or the garage while they were playing. My grandmother also played piano too in church, but my mom won awards and played for the president and got little signs. Like my mom was really, really good at. But I kind of grew up doing that and going with her to the Sunset Strip and watching her play at the Whiskey and the Roxy and doing all those things. So it was always kind of in my blood from day one. So
What instrument did you play? Or a bunch?
yeah, I started with piano, and from then on, I think at 8, I got my first guitar, but I wanted to be a drummer, so I got my first drum set at 10, and then I tried to do that for about 3 to 4 years, and then I picked up guitar around 14, and from there, and then I kind of started doing some vocals and singing and doing stuff like that. So I'm known more like with my bands and in the professional, like in the music industry, for being a guitar player and a backup vocalist. But I just got done playing bass in a band last night, so it's just
Right.
I kind of well-rounded as far. I'm a jack of all
a jack of all instruments.
jack of all trades, but master of none. Like I can't read a lick of music, but I can find my way around usually.
I'd say you mastered the guitar pretty well.
Oh, thank you.
I've had the delight of hearing you play. So
Yeah, we've got to work together.
yeah.
Which has been a pleasure.
When did the drug abuse start?
Oh,
And I guess like kind of like how, because I mean I know like they're kind of associated with one another in a sense, right? Like
Yeah.
being a rock star, right? Like drugs and alcohol.
yeah. My mom was very active in addiction. So over the time, she had me very young, and then, but as we were growing up, my mom, drank a lot. She didn't drink too much. I mean, she kind of kept it together for a while, but she was a very active cocaine user. And I was raised by my grandparents mostly. It was a very religious household. My grandpa was a principal. My grandmother was a teacher. So like education and sports and all that kind of stuff was very active when I was doing that during school. So I would live with them part-time, and then during the summer I'd go stay with Mom, and Mom was like the partier rock star girl, My mom had me when she was 16 or 17.
Oh wow.
So she was still, in her,
figuring stuff out.
figuring some stuff out, And I remember like around junior high was the time I started like drinking and smoking weed, and everybody wanted to be like, that's when I kind of was like, I want to live with Mom more than I want to live with my grandparents.
Less rules.
And my mom was like the cool mom where you can come over and pop
Right.
some Zimas and some wine coolers as long as you stay here, If you smoke a joint, we won't tell anybody, but you got to stay here and you
You
got
gotta share it with her.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, that too, But Zimas and wine coolers, I'm dating myself.
You
right
are.
there. Yeah, for sure. But then I would remember because I would always go over to my aunt's house and I have a whole like Mexican side of my family with my stepdad. But I'd always go over to my aunt's house, and my mom would always send me up, hey, go get some tacos from Aunt Frances. But when I went and went and picked up the tacos, there was always like a nice little clavo or something inside of it. So I always knew what was happening. Like I'd be picking up stuff for my mom, and I always promised myself like, hey, I'm never gonna be like that, And then when I started living with Mom, she wasn't used to making lunches and making sure I got up for school. It'd be like me waking her up like, hey, I need a lunch, I'm going to school. You know what I mean? And she'd just be like out of it. Going into high school, freshman year, I started partying a little bit. My sophomore year, the summer going from my freshman year into sophomore year into high school, I was already in chamber singers. I was playing varsity baseball. I was also very active, with music. But that summer, I had my first taste of methamphetamine
Oh man, going into high school?
going into my sophomore year.
Oh, going into sophomore year. Wow.
Yeah. And I had my cousins with the Mexican side of my family that we would, we were hanging out a lot that summer. It used to be really cool to go to Disneyland, and in Knott's Berry Farm they used to have like Studio K, and we would hang out and go dance and meet girls and do all those things. But they were already getting into the family business, if you know what I'm saying. So my sophomore year, I go in, and instantly when I did my first line of meth, I fell in love. Like it was like love at first sight. And then musically, it made me hyper focused. I could put on any album that I wanted to, and I could go to guitar, and I'd learn every song front to back on guitar, and then I'd go to drums, and I'd learn it front to back on drums, bass, keys, singing, and do whatever, and then I'd move on. So I thought, I
In
was
some
like,
ways it helped you,
yeah,
musically at least.
yeah. I mean, in the beginning,
It
yeah.
was good till it wasn't.
Yeah, it was good till it wasn't. I mean, it was great in the beginning. Like it took me, I went miles with that. But so it was my bright idea sophomore year to drop out of school and sell drugs and play music the rest of my life.
Okay.
So it kind of took off from there. And then meth basically I was a slave to meth for a long time after that.
Do you think there's a connection between like musicians and addiction and mental health issues? Do you think they're intertwined?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, every good singer in a band's got a screw loose. You know what I'm saying? Every, you know, I mean, we're all struggling. And like I kind of said in the beginning with Rock to Recovery, it's like a lot of people, like musicians are, I've come to believe that we're a little bit spoiled, that we have some sort of outlet, because there's a lot of stuff going on up in here, you know, and especially with people that are active in alcohol and addiction. But I've always had a place where I can pour that into. Some people find it with poetry, some people find it with painting, some people find it with some sort of creative outlet, but some people don't have any sort of creative outlet at all whatsoever. But you know, most of my rock star friends and people that are doing big things in the music industry are either in recovery or have dabbled with it or found their ways out of it one way or the other. But I think there's a huge connection with anybody that's extremely creative with alcohol and addiction, for sure.
I think it has to do with the sensitivity to pain. Like it allows you to feel on a degree that maybe a little bit too much. And I think that's why you're able to create in that way, but you also want to numb that because it's super intense.
For sure.
Take us to, you know, after high school, you're already kind of deep in methamphetamine use. How did you end up in prison?
Okay, so there's a bunch of ways I ended up in prison.
Yeah, okay. Start from the top.
Yeah. My best friend was like who's now like a 5th generation locksmith, right? I start running and selling dope with selling speed, meth, heroin, whatever I could, you know, what anybody wanted. And I had a knack for stealing cars. And I had a whole family, and I was at where I would start. I was taking cars down to Mexico and selling them. Ended up busted with me and 2 other people for theft ring in Orange County.
Did you end up just walking back over the border after you dropped the...
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd pay a couple people like, hey, here's an 8-ball, drive this down south with me. And it was a lot easier back then. You know? So you just drive over the border. I drop the cars off. I pick up some money. You know what I mean? And I'd come back, walk back across. We'd get on the Amtrak and come home. And, you know, I get paid anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 per car. So I'd try to go down there with 2 to 3 at a time. And then we had chop shops back in the day, and I'm dating myself again, but like the VTEC motors were a big thing, and everybody was putting them in these CRXs and making them into race cars, and you know, so I ended up getting busted with my brother and 2 other people, and with the tow yard, which was our chop shop, for 167 stolen cars and 87 stolen motorcycles. That's what I got busted for.
Right.
But I was a little white boy in Orange County, so it's like I kept my circle very small where I was taking everything. I wasn't very smart about it. And like anytime I was getting into LA County, I was like, nah, I'm gonna turn around and come back, you know, because I didn't want to get busted in LA. So that was the first time I got busted, and then from there, you know, basically from the time that I was 17 until I was 24, I wasn't out of jail or prison for longer than like 90 days, 4 months tops. So it would be a vicious cycle. When I was 16, also kind of like my mom, I ended up having a kid with somebody, and and she, you know, I got arrested. I got out 5 months later, and she was with somebody else, and I handled things terribly, you know, I mean, looking back at it, but I would always use that as an excuse. I'd want to go see my kid. I'd get some sort of conflict. I'd get the fuckets. I'd go out. I'd get high, and I'd turn it into a vicious cycle of me just getting busted in revolving door, which turned into 6 months in jail and probation to 9 months to a year to 16 months to 2 years to 3 years in prison, year violations in Chino State Prison. I've done all. It was all that time I would stay like in and out of that.
Well, once you're in it, it's kind of a revolving door,
Yeah.
right? Like it's so hard to get out of the clutches of that system.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like I remember like one of my, you think what the bottom was, but the guy that I got busted with all the stolen cars, I was out on bail. I was, I moved him into my mother's house in an RV, let him cook meth out in front of my RV for about 3 months. I was trying to be sober at the time, and I got my first job at a moving company, and I started doing long haul moves, and I was trying to do the right thing, and he was supposed to help pay rent and help pay for things while I was there, and we were supposed to be on the straight and narrow, but he was still going to be cooking, and he ends up burning me while I'm on a long haul with a move, and I come back, and the gas is shut off, the water's turned off, and my mom and my dad and my grandparents are like, what are we doing? Like, it's like over $1,000 to get all these bills turned back on. And I'm the oldest of 6 kids. My mom was busy. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, right? And so I call a dude, I find out, and I call some of the homies, and I find out where he's at, and I go over to get money from him, and he ends up being knotted out, trying to talk to me. I'm like, hey, dude, you got to turn these bills. Like, you screwed me over, So... and he wouldn't do it, and he nodded out. I took half his money, I took half his dope, and I came back. I paid the bills, and I did everything that was supposed to be done, and then I started getting high. 2 months later, I can't get any more dope, and he's the only person in town that's got it. And I call him up and ask him if he needs anything. He's like, yeah, get me a 4Runner. So I get him a 4Runner. I bring him over there. I said, like, I just made things right because of what you said. He's like, yeah, I do. We're good, right? And so, long story short, we're sitting there talking. The next thing you know, I get blacked out, and I had 3 different dudes came in behind me and fucking pistol whipped me from behind, and duct taped me to a chair. And he played Russian roulette with me for like 2.5 hours while they pistol whipped me. I was in and out of consciousness the whole time. And I was like, I remember waking up. It was off Western and Catella in Orange County, across the street from Motel 6. And I wake up and I think I'm dead. And I'm looking up and I see the moon and I see the stars. And I'm like swinging. I'm like, oh, am I dead? And I was like, that gun went off, And I land out in the middle of the street. And I hear like a big horn, and I roll over and I see like these big rig tires flying past me, like within front of my face. And they took my money, my pager, that dates me too.
Yeah.
His car, my gun, all the things. And I walk over. The only thing I could do is walk over to the gas station, and there was a payphone there, and I didn't have anything on me. And I walk up to the mirror at the Motel 6 or Circle K, and I could see the glass, the reflection of me in the glass. I'm wearing like a wife beater, probably like 100 pounds, some Dickies, and I'm just covered in blood, like from head to toe. I look like Carrie from the movie Carrie. And I walk in, and the guy's like, dude, I'm calling the cops. I'm like, do not call the cops, right? Just let me use your phone. I need to call some people. And I call everybody I know. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. Nobody's answering. And he just reaches in the drawer and he gives me a roll of quarters. And he's like, dude, just get out of here. And I went out to the payphone. The only person I picked up was my grandmother. And she comes and picks me up. She wants to take me to the hospital. And she doesn't. I ended up going to my buddy's house, and they sewed me up. And I got a bunch of scars from that situation, but that was kind of like the bottoms. That was the kind of life I lived, and there was a bunch of people on the news and people ending up in trash cans and a bunch of gangs and prison gangs and stuff that I was all like in the middle of getting involved in. But that was that all the way up until I was about 24 years old. But 2 numbers, a bunch of prison time.
Yeah. From that, was that the bottom that made you... Nope, you didn't. That wasn't it for you.
Yeah.
Take us on that journey.
I did. I mean, that was just like kind of like my day-to-day life. Like I had a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
going on for a long time. Like if it wasn't like that, then it wasn't. You know, that's just kind of how I lived my life for a long, long time. And my bottom, the first time, was in 2001, and I was finishing a 3-year term at Chino State Prison. And they were going to parole me to a halfway house in Garden Grove. It was called the Josephine House. And that's the first place that I ever got a taste of AA. But I was on that yard. It was 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave to go to the Josephine House. That's when 9/11 happened. We ended up being locked down. Everybody thought we were under attack, and everybody tried to take over the prison. So I ended up being there for 2 weeks longer than I was supposed to, and then finally went to Josephine Street. I paroled from there. I tried to drink like a gentleman for a little bit and moved in with my friend Erica in South County. I started drinking. We ended up at a bar one night singing karaoke, having a good time and doing whatever, but I was going to be the driver because everybody else was trash. So it was my best thinking that I was like, oh, I got to sober up. I'm in Garden Grove. I'll call one of the homies. I'll smoke a little speed just so I can get us home, because I'm pretty drugged.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So from that point on, it was probably 3 months into that I screwed off my job and did everything else as soon as I started doing speed again. And I was 3 dirty tests with parole. And I was with this girl at the time, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to go. I mean, I'm on my way back to my another violation. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I called Erica. Her dad owns some recovery homes in Fullerton. And I called him up, Mike Fruchon, and I said, hey, at Josephine Street every Sunday I would have to do these AA panels. They would come in and talk, and I would listen, and I thought it was crazy. I thought it was a cult, and I thought it was, and I was bummed because that was visiting time. That's when the girls can come, and do stuff, but I got to go sit in this frickin' meeting right now. But I knew he did AA, and I knew he'd been sober for a long time, and I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like, he's like, well, if you can test clean, you can come. I'll give you a bed at my house. I'll give you a month to figure stuff out and get a job and do your things. You got to do 30 meetings in 30 days. So I detoxed on my brother's couch for 2 days. I went to the sober living home, got put in, and I called my parole officer, and I was like, hey, I know it's been a month, but this is where I'm at. And this is what I'm trying to do. I know I've been fucking up. And he's like, I'll be there first thing in the morning, 7 a.m. And you better be there. I was like, all right. And for the first time that night, I hit my knees. And it wasn't like the back of the cop car, please get me out of this situation type prayer. It was just like, hey, God, if you can give me a solid chance at trying something different, I'm going to definitely change my ways. I know we haven't talked in a while, but I could use some solid help right now. And my parole officer came over the next morning, and he basically told me by himself, I thought they were going to take me in. And he said, hey, here's a cup. You have 3 dirty tests. I'm supposed to take you in right now. And I'm here by myself. I'm not taking you in. But if this test is dirty, then put your running shoes on because there's nothing I can do for you. He's like, are you clean? I'm like, I hope so. And I pissed in that cup, and I prayed again that night. I was smoking probably an 8-ball a day at that point, and I only had 2 days of sleep before my brother kicked me out. So there's no really real reason why that test should have came back clean. And I don't know if, like, my parole officer turned it in at all. I don't know if God came down and sprinkled magic fairy dust all over my pee or whatever the deal is. But the test came back clean, and I did 30 meetings in 30 days. And that was kind of like my first bottom. There's a place called the Meeting Place in Fullerton. I go to that daily. I started working with my dad. And there was a musician that came at a speaker meeting there. And it's probably like 28 days into it. And I remember hearing his story. And I could relate with a lot. and it was an AA meeting, but he said he just enjoyed AA more, and that he was a drug addict, but said he found more recovery in that. So I went to him and I asked him to sponsor me, and after that I ended up working all my steps with him. I ended up meeting the mother of my daughter about 30 days later. Yeah.
Quick.
Yeah. And 90 days into it, we kind of made a pact with each other that we were going to finish our steps. She was in a program at the time. And we ended up getting married and having a kid and doing stuff. And I ended up staying clean and sober for about 5 years. So that was kind of my bottom the first time around.
What happened that made you relapse after 5 years of recovery?
Like they say in the book, like I got all the gifts from the program. Like I got all the promises that they say at every meeting, right? You know, you will not regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. You know, we just, like, life got lifey. I ended up getting a really, really good job. I ended up getting into, I was started playing actually professionally with music for the first time. Got in my first band that led to another band that led to another band that ended up getting me a record deal, and getting looked at by major labels, and hanging out with all the people in the music business that I used to just dream about working with. And I was making over triple digits, working 7 days on, 7 days off in the oil fields, playing and going on tour with great bands. And about 5 years into it, we just kind of figured that we were cured together. That we were just drug addicts. We weren't really alcoholics. I never went to prison or caught a number or kicked in any doors or stole any cars from, drinking a couple beers and taking a couple shots, and that we're cured. So we went out on our anniversary, and my manager at the time for the band got us a couple bottles of Cristal, and we went out and had a good weekend for our anniversary. We went out and drank together. So that was the relapse portion of it.
And how long was it before you picked up again? Because that liquor always leads you right back to the bag, doesn't it?
It took a minute for the bag, but within us starting to drink and saying that we were just going to drink together, or we would drink on the weekends or do whatever, 3 months into it, my band was kind of taking off, and the drinking together part stopped. Like, she would drink when she was with people, and I would drink after shows, and I would drink if I was out mingling or doing whatever. And so 3 months into that, it came down to the situation whether it was the band or my family, and I chose the band over my family. So it was like, okay, well, if you're not going to support my dreams, I've come far to try to do this. Like, I think you should be supporting me with it. I don't want you going anywhere. But I went to a show one night, came home, and she was packed up, and we took my kid, and everything was gone, 6 months into it, my band broke up. At that point, I ended up doing cocaine in between after she left, because it was organic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the ground.
Yeah.
From a plant.
It's from a plant.
Yeah.
It's natural.
The Lord made it.
Yeah, it's like the Whole Foods of products. Yeah. And it was more acceptable, like, you know what I mean? Socially, I remember the first time I did that, and it was, I was in Hollywood. I was at the Rainbow Room with a bunch of people that are actually sober now, that are pretty big names in the business, but we were all wasted. And I went upstairs into the bathroom, and there's a couple girls in there doing some coke, and they asked me if I wanted a line. I'm like, no. It was after a show one night. When I went to the bathroom, I go to wash my hands. They're like, hey, you want a line? I'm like, no, I'm good. Thanks, And then they're like, hey, you want a line? And put it out there. I was like, I absolutely want a line. And from that point on, I was doing coke pretty much every weekend.
The devil was working hard.
9 months, 7 to 8 months into that, my wife or ex-wife was dating some deplorable guy that ended up beating her up and putting hands on my kid and said that he was going to shoot me in the back, and a bunch of stuff happened. She called me in the middle of the night freaking out, and this was like on a Sunday, and I've been doing coke since Thursday. So you know, my addict brain was like, okay, I need to call some of the fellas. I come back down to Anaheim, Orange County. I go pick up a gun. I've been doing coke all weekend. I haven't slept, so I need to stay up. This dude's going to fucking come after me. I need to handle business, so I end up smoking some speed. 3 months after that, I'm crime, looking at 13 years in prison again. So that's how quick that happened. It was like all within a year. From 2007 to 2008.
Okay. You're looking at 13 years, but you didn't do the 13 years?
Mm-mm. So, April 20th of 2008, I'm right up the street from here, off Dyer and the 55 freeway, the Motel 6, and I had everything a good alcoholic and drug addict likes. Had a bunch of speed, bunch of weed, bottle of Grey Goose in the fridge, a beautiful girl in bed with me, all the adult activities on TV, you know, and I was miserable. And like, I was just looked back at my life from what I've done in a year. I'm already out on 2 bails. And I called a friend of mine that ran Wood Glen at the time and asked him for a couple beds for me and my girl. And I called some of friends of mine and said, hey, just come pick up all this stuff for me, try to sell it for whatever you can, and just give it to me so I can fight these cases. And they came at like 2 o'clock in the morning, picked it up. 5:30 in the morning, I had 3 different task force kick in my door before I could I kept 1 pipe load to go to detox with. And they took me into jail before that, so that's my sobriety date right now, is April 21st of 2008. And we fought the cases down. I went from 13 to 3 years. I ended up doing 3 years in jail. I got out on 11/16 of 2011. And I've been sober ever since. Yeah.
What was different this time when you got out?
I already had a head full of AA.
Okay.
And the steps had done its work in my life, and I had a higher power in my life, and I had what my understanding of it was. And I was already done before I had to go back to prison. You know, so it was easy to stay clean in prison. It's always easier for me to stay clean when I'm locked up, even though it's all there anyway. But when I got out, I just kind of jumped into AA autopilot, you know. I knew I had work to do. I had a lot of, you know, I had DUIs and classes and, you know, child support and all those things you got to get. But I would just go to a morning meeting and try to find a job and leave, come back for a noon meeting, try to find a job, come back, try to find some people to work out with. I called my buddy that's a drummer in a band that I loved and respected, and we toured together when we were sober, and he also saw me when I was relapsed, but I asked him to sponsor me and started doing the steps and doing my thing. But I was just like, any reservations that I thought that I wasn't an alcoholic and that I was just a drug addict, it was already smashed, you know. So that was, I think, is what changed. I did the experimenting after having everything and literally giving it back. And then, you know, I think that's what changed for me this time a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there any musical, like, I know, like, I don't know what you'd call it. Is there any like musical outlet within the correctional system?
There is, and it depends on what facility you're at, right? So I ended up I had some nylon string acoustic guitar for my last term that I ended up being able to get my hands on, and I wouldn't give back, and I got some strings, you know. And I knew the CO, and I knew the person working the library. I'm like, yeah, this I'm not returning this. And they're like, okay, that's cool, you know, and So, and I ended up writing some of the heaviest songs I've ever written. I wrote on that guitar, for my metal band, or my first band that I got out, but I would just play with that. But there's no like band room, and there's no, I mean, not in any of the facilities that I've been at.
No directed, focused programs.
No, I'm not in prison.
Do you think that that'd be something that could be helpful?
100%. Yeah.
Has Rock to Recovery considered doing things in correctional facilities?
That's something I would probably want to talk to Wes about, but it's been a kind of a journey for him to do this. And, he's just like us. So, I mean, he's just like me, he's a drug addict and an alcoholic. And, he ended up getting a job to play guitar in Korn for 8 years, I think it was. And, when he ended up losing that job with Korn, that's what he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I know I'm sober. I know I want to help people. And the only thing I really know how to do is play music, So he kind of started it with that, and he wanted to help, soldiers and veterans and people in mental health and stuff. So it kind of progressed over time to where it was just him. And it's still kind of growing, and it's kind of become its own thing, because it went from just him to now there's 17, going to be 20 of us across the United States that facilitate it. And we are getting into to where we've worked with over 150 treatment centers. We've written over 30,000 songs with people. Just me alone, I've been with them for 3 years, and I think I just broke 12 or 1,300 songs I've written personally. So, and we are progressing to where Rock to Recovery's become such a staple with the treatment and the mental health side of facilities, and people kind of know who we are and what we're doing. We're kind of branching out to where we're getting to another part of the company, which we're basically gonna call it Band Jam. And it's going to still address the mental health portion of it, but try to hit it early, and take it out to a broader spectrum of people, which might be correctional facilities as well.
At-risk youth or something
Sure.
like that. Yeah.
Sure. But, we're going to, even in a corporate environment, like a lot of people do the day-to-day in and out grind. They don't see any of their coworkers. They're talking to everybody on Zoom. They don't have any kind of physical interaction, any kind of team creating something together. It's just that, here's the TPZ report. I'm sending it out to you. Okay, Karen. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's getting in with them and getting them all together, and maybe, getting that mental health positive and hitting it earlier than before you're at some sort of bottom, But, I mean, maybe that could be something in the correctional facilities too. I mean, I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
For the person that's watching this and has had some of your same experiences, but is just absolutely hopeless and cannot seem to figure it out, what would you have to say to them?
I mean, there's a better way of life, We've all been hopeless and at the bottom. And if it wasn't, for me, it was pretty simple. It was 12 steps and having something greater than myself to help restore me to sanity that helped me get here, And it's sometimes it's just dropping some of the pride that you have, or, I think my pride is what held me back from it a long time. Was that I wasn't a man if I had to ask somebody else for help, or and that can go for men and women. I mean, it's like, can you still be a strong, independent woman and need help? Yeah, you can. So I think it's some of that, and there's just a better way. It's just sometimes you got to ask for help.
Okay. Such a good story.
I mean, I've got to play with Grammy award-winning artists. I get to be in bands with people I looked into, and it's like I remember sitting in a prison cell in Wasco State Prison and asking God to find me a job where I could make music. And for me at the time, it was having the record deal and being a rock star. And I still get to do a little bit of that kind of stuff, but honestly, like the music I get to do with Air Force Wounded Warriors is it's the most rewarding thing I've ever got to do, because I'm just like a low bottom indigent ex-convict tweaker from Anaheim, and I get to fly to Washington D.C. and be on the Air Force Base with people that have given their whole lives for this country, and get to work with them and them just trying to get back into life and find some sort of what the new normal is.
He's got security clearance.
I do.
Imagine.
They double check me every time. They're like, "Hey,
Are you sure? They gonna let him in? Are we sure?
yeah." But it's if I would, if I would have told you like 16 years ago I'd be doing what I get to do today with the rad people I get to do it with, like I would have told you were crazy. So, and it's all because of what the program has done in my life.
It's funny because God answers your prayers, but not in the way that you think. It's always got his little twist on it, but it is an answered prayer.
Yeah.
Was there a moment, like a defining moment, where you thought maybe I got it this time?
As far as
Like sobriety or getting a handle on things in your life where you kind of let that fear of maybe relapse or going back to your old life drop a little bit, and you're like, I think I get to keep it this time.
Yeah, I mean, even in 16 years in sobriety, it hasn't been perfect, but I got to listen to what, like my sponsor and I've got a good support group of people around me. I got some solid guys that I can call if I'm tripping. My sponsor, I've been, in this time in sobriety, I've been stressed out and not being able to pay bills, and I've been at the Connect ready to pick up. So I could start moving some weight just so I could pay child support, and I could pay for DUI classes, and I could do stuff. And I've had the pipe in my hand and watching it crack back. And I've had a girl that was dying of cancer that I've known for 25 years that knew I was solid saying, "Here, I'll just give you 3 pounds. It's yours. I'm not going to make it through the year. You can have it." And my sponsor told me, like, "Hey, if you want to get high and you want to do something, sit on your hands and wait till tomorrow." And that said that right before I put the pipe in my mouth, And so I did. I waited till tomorrow because I couldn't get a stable job and do whatever. And I swear to God, the next morning, I get a call from Costa Mesa Moving Company saying, "Hey, I got a full-time position for you driving. I can guarantee you this amount of hours. This is how much money you're going to make. Blah, 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 blah. We love the work that you've been doing here. Can you show up?" Now, if I would have taken that hit,
You'd have been gone.
Yeah.
Done, and that ended up, I've been at that company basically, I branched out here back and forth, but it's been a solid place for me for 13 years until I started doing Rock to Recovery and started working with mental health and addiction and being able to play music for a living. But it's like, I've had that. I've been tripping over a girl ready to say screw it and had shots lined up at the bar in this time in recovery. And before I take the shot, I call my buddy, "Hey bro, I'm about to drink right now." And you have somebody solid enough to be like, "Hey dude, give me 15 minutes. I'll be down there. And if it's that bad, I'll drink with you."
I remember one time you told me it's when you want to and you don't, that's when the miracle happens. And I thought that was so powerful.
And that's exactly what it's been in my life. It's like, whether you believe in God and the devil or you don't, or what, it is. It's just like whatever evil is in the world, they'll always throw you an easy one over the plate. Here's your escape. You want to hit it out of the park? And it's like the times that you don't, for me, it's like, I don't need the easy way out this time. And then there's always some beautiful gift on the other side. And that's served me pretty well up until now.
Do you have any favorite stories about how music has affected somebody's mental health?
Yeah. I mean, I got a ton of them. I got a ton of them. Just last Tuesday. Last Tuesday I work in Palm Springs, right? And I show up and I do a late night session there. And it was a bad day at the treatment center. Everybody is hating life. One girl's bestie left. Another dude, AMA, jumped out of the middle of the van in the middle of an intersection and left. no, everybody's yelling at staff. And as soon as I show up there, staff at the rehab's good luck, you know. And there's one of my clients is in there talking about like she doesn't like her roommate and she doesn't feel comfortable and blah 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 blah. I was like, and she's got a beautiful voice. I jammed with her. This is the second time she's been back, and I was like, hey, why don't you come in and sing with me? And she's like, I'm not feeling it today. I'm like, that's fine if you're not feeling it today. We'll just come in and down and hang out, you know, whatever. And so I go set up my stuff. Everybody comes in. Everybody's journey. Nobody wants to be a part of it. We do our check-ins. We do all the clinical stuff, and we're sitting around and we're doing everything. And I was like, okay, so what's the deal? What kind of song we want? Well, we want, if we do anything, we want to do something uplifting. Okay. So we're like, well, what are we going to write about? I don't know. And she's like, I don't want to write about anything. Today sucks. So I was like, okay, we'll write a song. Today sucks.
Yep.
What kind of song we want to do? We want to do something like happy. So we start doing some like reggae, sublimey type stuff. Everybody comes. There's like 5 of us when we start, and the girl starts singing "Fuck Today." You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's really, really hard. Fuck today. And so then next thing you know, I got 30 of these people coming out of their rooms, and they're all coming in there. Everybody's shaking something and dancing around and trying to add stuff. And we just wrote these lyrics about, I talked to my baby daddy, and he's not as good as a 73 caddy, and like blah, 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 blah. And he sucks so bad. And it was just like, you know, being on the last day of my taper on my diazepam and all these things. Like we started like just talking about like, okay, what sucked for you today? What sucked for you today? What sucked for you today? And we wrote this song about how today just fucking sucks. And then everybody left there with a smile on their face. You know, that's the power of music. Like I got chills. Like my
I
hair
did
standing
too.
up.
Yeah, me too.
You know, so that, I mean, I get to experience that daily. You know what I mean? And it's not always that, but it was like, that was one of the raddest groups I've ever got to do, you know?
All from a bad day.
Yeah. Or then it's like with Wounded Warriors, where we get a week to work with them. It's not just one like 2-hour session. So we get to actually flush out the song. We start it, and then like the second day we'll try to do some finishing touches on it. Third day we'll finish it, and then maybe start a new one and work throughout the week. But it's like you see people that come in there and they're just emotionally broken and bankrupt, and they've dedicated their lives to something bigger like the country. And then sometimes they get failed by the country, and sometimes they get failed by the service, and sometimes they get failed, you know, and whether they're sick or whether they got injured in battle or whether they're not, but they don't know what to do with their lives anymore because that was their life. And you know, sometimes it's like people that have seen terrible things just be able to open up and have joy again when they haven't had joy in 15 years.
Yeah.
They haven't smiled in 15 years, and you get the first smile out of them for forever. You know, I get those. I get this, and then it's so much bigger than me from where that I come from, and then with people that I look up to just because they had that much, you know, conviction and perseverance to do something bigger than themselves than just pour it into meth and things that I did when I was a kid, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I just want to thank you for being here today.
Yeah. That was awesome. We've never had anything like that. I got chills a couple times.
Me too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking me to come down. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Of
Thank you.
course.
Yeah. Thank you.